If you could be a background actor in any TV show, which one would it be?
Lizzie McGuire.
Walking Dead.
Ed, Ed, and Eddie.
What is happening?
Man, I was very excited to do this podcast. That answer just went so many different directions. No, let's not get into that. Well, let's get into it.
I don't know if they take if they take any more actors on Ed, Ed, and Eddie. And I don't know why.
I thought my answer wasn't that great, and then I heard yours, and I was like, you know what, I'm good over here. I'm good over here.
Ed, Ed, and Eddie.
I honestly have no explanation. I don't know why I thought of that, where that came from, but
did I like trigger like childhood shows, and you're like, what was my favorite childhood show?
No, I know exactly what he asked, but I don't know. That was the Ed, Ed, and Eddie world was really bizarre.
What would you be in the Ed, Ed, and Eddie world?
Like one of the idiots in the background.
Well, that's not a background.
Would you get the gumballs that they would have?
A background. You said a background character, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. I could be Plank. Plank doesn't have a crazy.
That's a main character, bro. That's a main character. All
right. What did you guys say? Walking Dead?
Mine's the best. So I'll let Amber go.
Okay, fine. Mine is because, I mean, as long as I could be in the presence of the queen, that's all that would matter.
What was yours?
Lizzie McGuire.
Oh, Lizzie McGuire.
Yeah.
Okay, so you would probably be one of the high school students.
I want to be like, you know, like Kate, or like one of like the cheerleaders who were like doing one of those, or like how like Lizzie would always have like, you know, a lesson in each episode, and like maybe I could like teach her a lesson, and then I could like feel some type of way forever just knowing.
Amber, I think you would do better in like Ned's Declassified School Survival Guide.
Oh, I mean, me and that like guy could hit it off.
Who?
Ned.
No.
Cookie.
Yeah,
no,
Cookie, right?
Oh, Cookie.
Or are you talking about
the one who's that has a computer? No, not Coconut.
Yeah, so Cookie.
Yeah. Me and him would just be sniffling together.
Yo, FARAS used to look like Coconut Head. I saw some pictures.
It was one picture. My dad used to like. Well, he did it one time. He cut our hair like that. Me and my brother. I don't know why. I feel like every Desi kid has one haircut that's like a bowl cut. I don't know why we do that in our culture, but we do it for some reason.
That's even my sister-in-law wanted to do my nephew now in 2021. Like, it's not the time anymore.
All right, so Shamir, you want to sit through like 20 hours of makeup to be a zombie?
Honestly, I was thinking of that right after I said my answer, and that is the bad part. But it's probably so fun. Like, all you do is just go, like, just crawl around, and like you can do whatever. And
it's probably the most of the day is probably getting the makeup on.
Yeah.
And then they're like, and then they cut you out, or you're blurry in the background. No one ever even sees you.
But the funniest thing is, like, I've worked at haunted houses and stuff like that, and there's people that like will come there and work there, and they'll be like, "Yeah, I was on The Walking Dead," and I was like, "So then, what are you doing here?" Like, how did they end up from Walking Dead to there? But apparently, it's like good on your resume as like a background actor. Like, people always put that like, "Well, I was on The Walking Dead," so I don't know. That's what I thought.
Yeah, but like, there's people that just do those jobs a lot, and it's not like you necessarily, you know, you were saying that, oh, you've worked on The Walking Dead, so what are you doing here? But like, you know, I mean, your boy was on House of Cards. What am I doing on Strange Flavors?
Oh my god!
I mean, I think it's a step up. The main guy was a pedo or something. So
who? Oh, you're talking about Kevin Spacey. Kevin Spacey.
So you moved up, I think.
Oh, from that to this?
From that to this, yeah.
There you
for
go.
sure.
That's a win in my book.
But no, it was like, I've told this story before, but it was like, you know, you're waiting around all day and you barely make it into the shot, so it's a lot.
Maybe Ed, Ed, and Eddie is probably the best.
Ed, Ed, and Eddie's the best move. You get the most time.
No, but no one forgets the background actors. No one remembers.
From what?
Like, from cartoons. Like, I don't look in the background.
Yeah, that's true. But unless they have a few lines or something. Like the My Leg guy from SpongeBob.
Oh,
what a legend.
That's an iconic background character.
See?
That's like the
peak.
Yeah.
Anyways, guys, thank you for tuning into an episode of Strange Flavors. My name is Shimmer.
I'm FARAS.
My name is Amber.
This is the strangest and greatest podcast in the game. This is also brought to you by Alif Theory. If you'd like to email us or send us your music, strangeflavorspodcast@gmail.com. And if you want to listen to this podcast, everywhere you listen to podcasts, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and you can see our beautiful faces on YouTube. So be sure to comment, like, subscribe.
I've been putting mascara on for you guys for the last 2 weeks. I hope you know and recognize.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah. I've been doing it for years.
But also, if you'd like to also follow us on... you can follow us on social media at Strange Flavors. Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, and now TikTok.
Yes, sir.
So be sure to follow us there. And we have a huge list of Strange Flavors Town.
Oh.
You guys know. Our monthly supporters, they've been carrying this podcast. Oh. They're the reason why we can do everything, including you guys listening. So, and we'd like to shout them out. We got Bobber's Bagels, Cassie's Cupcakes, Airhouse Ices, Faria's Falafels, and Uslam's Apples.
Look at the diversity in the Strange Flavors
That's amazing.
Town.
Yummy, yummy. So if you want all the goods... If you want all the goods, come over to Strange Flavors Town. There's a link down below, and you can also help support this podcast. We also have an amazing YouTube channel that goes by the name of Ronald Pono. We have a Patreon with exclusive content. We also have an amazing Discord, so you can give your cool questions and even give us interviewees in the Discord as well.
Yes, you can. You can suggest
And if you
guests.
want to buy amazing merch as well, ronaldpono.com.
Shamir sounds like he's trying out for the job of a co-host on Strange Flavors.
Did I get it?
You got it, man. The Yummy Yummy did it for me.
The Yummy Yummy was so good.
You're hired.
That has to be in every episode.
Yeah.
Yummy.
Yo, so you guys have been killing it on the comment section on YouTube, but it's really... It's the audience, but it's really all because of our last guest, who was as controversial as we predicted it to be after we released the episode.
For sure.
So basically, we had David Weiss, who was a flat earther, on the last episode, and we actually had a discussion before we brought him on about, like, is this okay to do? Is this going to spread false information? Are we giving somebody a platform? Which are some of the concerns that were brought up later.
Is this a cult?
And exactly, yeah. Like, what are we doing by having somebody like this on? And we decided that the premise of our podcast is that we invite strangers, no matter what their beliefs are, onto the show and hear them out. And our angle was more so not to figure out and debunk what he's saying. It was more so, let's figure out why he believes this stuff and what is, the reason he's doing these things. And if you listen to the podcast, you'll figure out that we weren't agreeing with him at any point. We were just kind of like taking it as it goes. And even he didn't come to some sort of big revelation or solution.
We should also add in the fact that because we aren't scientists, it's also very hard to have that type of conversation when somebody's spitting out exact numbers, and we can't, we have interns behind the scenes who are fact checking, but you can't just do it down to the numbers like that and us not be, none of us are biology majors, okay?
Yeah. And that's not what our show is about. So even if we had prepared and studied, that this is what this man does. So we can't combat him on something that he says. That's like his life work. Exactly. We used our knowledge of our upbringing and what we see around us to throw some things at him to try to explain, his perspective. And he did that, right? But along the way, we were like, all right, let's try to draw the bigger picture here. And if you could tell, by the end of it, we were basically like, just letting him go on and hearing him out. And, people did appreciate that we did that. Some people were like, you should have said this and you should have, stopped it here or whatever. But I think that the way that our podcast runs, we handled it appropriately. Of course, there were plenty of times where I know Shamir was particularly over and over saying, like, man, I'm thinking of like this, and this I could have said during the podcast. So there was that frustration.
That was like right after the podcast. I was just thinking the day after. I was just so like, when you have an argument with somebody and you're like, I should have said this. I should have said this.
Especially in the shower, you have like flashbacks.
Yes. And you're like, Yes. I was having that for like probably 2 days straight. And I was like, dude, I should have said this. I should have said this. But then I was looking back at some clips in the podcast and I was like, I said some things. I was like, wait, that doesn't make sense. And then he was like, no, you're spitting nonsense. And then he just like went on to whatever he was talking about. So he was really good at doing that. So I was like, all right, maybe I did try, but I guess he just spilled it over or whatever. So, but
he did have like a great way of marketing his idea, and we knew by the end of it that he is a salesman, basically, of his idea and his app and his channel and all of that. And the way that he would speak about things, as you were saying, was like, he would basically decide what he wants to leverage. Yeah. And if anything, he would be like, show me proof. And if we did show him proof, it was like, oh, that's not real proof. So it was really categorized as far as what he thinks is valid and is not. So there was that challenge.
Even if you were to bring up something, it would be like, okay, well, let me go in to explain this basic thing. And then he'll like go into like a much deeper thing. But it's not going to be a straight up answer. But when we're asking and being like, hey, what about this? He's like, well, let me go into this huge topic. And then it kind of just gets all messed up.
Yeah. Yeah. What were some of your favorite comments? I know, Amber, you were looking at some, but he has a huge fan base. He promised us at the beginning of the podcast that it's going to be our biggest podcast ever, and we're going to want him back, and all of this stuff. But it was true that like the comments section is going crazy, and
he was slightly undermined. Like there wasn't a total belief on him when he said that, but he did bring through a little bit of a crowd.
The views weren't crazy, and it's not the most viewed, but the engagement, I think that he definitely has a huge fan base behind him. That will click on anything with his name on it and support it.
I also want to know who has converted to flat earthism after our podcast.
Let's see the damage.
Whoa, Amber.
No, that's funny. Was there anything in particular you thought was funny in the comments that some of his supporters were leaving?
I mentioned actually one of our interns sent this when it came up, and it was just so funny. I'm gonna read it now. It says, "It's entertaining to see these bougie Zoomers get flat woke. They were pretty reachable, though. It's more entertaining when the podcasters get angry, ask more desperate questions, and throw out more, but my astrophysics professor said this type stuff. Hardly even a good performance from Dave. Just sort of him on autopilot. Looking through these Zoomers videos, and man, they have some warped sense of reality and NPC tier worldview. At least they're somewhat aware of the ball earth lie now."
So that's us, we're the Zoomers.
He sounds like a Reddit user.
That's okay. Thank you, Shamir. I have been spending days thinking about what the word is that describes like these people who are like this deep into it, because they have such a like way of speaking, and it's you're right. It's Reddit. It's like how Reddit users speak.
Yeah.
So like Reddit users like swear they're better than everybody else.
Oh yeah.
Like they think they are better than everybody else. And so it's very clear when they talk.
One time I went on like Reddit, right? And I was going on this like solo travel like subreddit, right? I wanted to like figure out what's the best place to like solo travel by yourself, like first time, I was like, where are some cheap places but that are still fun to go to? I typed that in, right? Exactly like that. And they're like, go research yourself. I was like, I'm going on Reddit to research and there was a whole subreddit that people help you like how to solo travel, and they just said go research yourself, and I'm like, what the heck?
So I think this whole episode, the reason we're bringing this up is because I think this whole episode we have to re-emphasize the point like of what our purpose is. But
we don't spend every episode talking about the previous episode, by the way.
Yeah, but it's like we have to, because sometimes we have to restate what our mission is in all of this. And this was an extreme example of disagreeing with somebody and having them onto our show. But I think that there is this case of so much polarization in our country and maybe in the world because of the internet and what we consume, where everything that we're consuming is things that we agree with and we don't even hear anything else out. And in this case, it was like, to me, and we said this at the beginning of the last podcast, so we're not trying to like just bag on David or anything. He was great. He was a nice guy. But at the beginning of the podcast, he was like, there's some people that think that flat earth is completely BS. And then, I said right away, like, yeah, I'm one of those people. I'll go with that. And that was the case basically. But in a lot of situations, like, we don't even know what somebody else really believes in. We just hear flat earth and we're just like, we just mark it off. And we just wanted to see, like, wait, like, what even, how do you get behind this? What's the story here, right? And when it comes to other situations, like, whether it be political or whatever else, where people are choosing sides, a lot of times you just see a label or a term and you're just like, mark off, and you don't even associate. You're like canceled if you use this term, or you associate with this symbol at all. You're marked off, and your argument is invalid. There was a situation that happened recently that it was just so bizarre. I have to share it, but we have this Facebook group for my neighborhood. And basically, like, people share on there, all right, like, they have questions about, okay, trash day, recycling, and what's the neighborhood doing for Halloween since COVID is going on, or like, I have these bulk items, where, like, it's just stuff like that, like, right, like neighborhood stuff. And they also like complain on there. So there's a lot of like Karens that are on this group. And
Can I ask how many people it is, just to preface? Like, is it like 20
group?
families, or is it like
no, it's like
people?
it's like hundreds.
Hundreds, okay.
Our whole development. It's not just like my street. So
Okay.
it's a lot of people on there. And recently, somebody posted a picture of a girl who was walking her dog and pooped on her lawn. She has one of those Ring doorbells, and she posted it on the Facebook group and was like, hey, like, this girl, is walking her dog and this. And people are commenting on the post, and they're like, oh, this is so messed up, like, you should call the police on her. And then it started escalating so much that people are like, you should involve PETA, here's the number, and like all of this stuff. And then people started zooming in on the girl, taking pictures of her, and like replacing her face with other people in the group and saying like, this is something that like Sean would do or something, and like bagging on each other, right? We saw this. So me and Ahmad, who is our friend who is in a lot of our videos and everything, he lives right next door to me. We will like screenshot things from that group and then, talk about it amongst ourselves. My sister is still in the group too. She's moved out, but she just loves the entertainment of it. And so like we have, group chat.
I'm about to join this group. What do you mean?
It's so funny. It's so funny. But so we posted it in there. We're like, oh my God, like, what's going on here? Ahmed took the liberty of going outside and ringing the neighbor's doorbell. He just did this on his own and being like, hey, you're posted all over Facebook. And
Wait, you guys recognize the girl?
Yeah, like, we all know who everybody
Who it
is. So like, anybody could have just been like, hey, it's this person, just walk over. Literally, she could have like walked across the street, rung the doorbell, and been like, hey, your dog pooped in my lawn, can you like fix the situation, right? They didn't do that. And so then Emma did it, and then the guy was like, this is my 12-year-old daughter, and you're posting her pictures all over Facebook and doing all these things to it, and you're going to threaten to call PETA and the police when it's, can be solved so easily.
A 12-year-old. She's a preteen.
Now, I'm not a huge fan of dogs. I think, some are cute and whatever. And when a dog poops on my lawn, it's like annoying, right? But I have never thought in my life that I'm going to call the police on somebody, let alone PETA, for dog poop. It's a lawn, it's dog poop. It's not that big of a deal. If I see that person, I'm gonna be like, hey,
it's probably
going to
help the ground anyway.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not like, it's annoying, joking. So I'm not even going to go down that lane. But this is the whole reason I bring this story up is people are not interested in solving problems. That is my takeaway from not only this situation, but so much of what we've experienced in the last few years of growing up in America, dealing with internet and politics, really, that people have gone so far that they are not interested in solving the problem. They are interested in furthering the problem and creating a situation. How inconvenient is it to go out of the way, make memes of this person, call PETA, share that, like, you are in the same neighborhood. This is how bad it's gotten. That you are neighbors with this person. Neighbors are, it's in your biblical book. Like, You know what I mean? Like we learn this stuff and we share it in quotes all the time, but we don't practice it. Yeah. And your literal neighbor, you are treating like they are a criminal, a 12-year-old girl.
I think what you said kind of like emphasizes it is people don't look for a solution, because those same people that bring up these problems and they're like, oh my God, blah, 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 blah. And like they want to like hype it up more. The second that you're like, okay, so what should we do about it? Like, you'll notice they'll dodge the solution to complain about it more. Like,
exactly.
Instead of actually finding a solution, it's like, what more can I say? And honestly, they'll go into, like, another, like, level of it, too. Like, okay, like, if it's just a dog pooping on here, why did you go on your Ring doorbell, look through it? Why were you looking through footage like that anyway? Then you're like, oh, let me screenshot, let me post this. Like,
I gotta say,
she wants to show power.
It's often the mayonnaise mafia. It's often, you know what I'm saying? Like, we don't, Desi people, they don't have time for this. Yeah. Black people, they don't have time for this.
Listen, Desi people really don't like dogs, and we've had like a couple of annoying dogs in their neighborhood, and I've never heard anybody be like, oh yeah, let's like call the police on this dog. Like,
it's weird,
I've had a dog
man.
chase me down 3 streets before, and we're like, talk to the neighbor about it.
I think it's like a neighbor hierarchy thing. Like, they want to show that they have power, and then be like, if you do something like this again, this is the result of it.
Wait, so what happened with the guy? What did he end up doing? Did he like call him out, and did they take it down?
Well, so our hero in the story, Ahmed Hamayo, after he showed him, the guy, you know, posted on Facebook and said, like, you know, next time just walk over, let's like deal with it, whatever, but I don't appreciate what has happened. And a bunch of people liked it and agreed with it. And that's what they do. They just, you know, when they see everybody is liking getting behind something, they'll just either add fuel to the fire or be like, oh yeah, like we should love each other and whatever. But the real hero of the story here is Ahmed Hamayo, the one and only.
Ahmed.
And
off, Mr. Cheetah.
And this is just to let anybody in my neighborhood know that y'all just moved in. We are the dons of the neighborhood. All right? It doesn't we still run it. Even if we're not getting involved on that level. We'll screenshot your stuff. We're watching everything. So you better be careful. Also, to bring this back around,
you better be careful for us. You're threatening them. You're gonna end up on that Facebook page next.
They probably police. they probably have been looking for something since we've been here. We've lived here since we were kids. I'm surprised
they haven't put a noise complaint about you yet.
No, they can't. Well, they're all way worse. Shamir knows, like, you know,
there's like people fighting next door, saying like F words and shit.
Sometimes, some of them be wilding out. But also, to bring this back around, to why that original story came up about the flat Earth thing. If we're interested in solving a problem, right? Our takeaway basically from that episode was that the problem that he and a lot of flat earthers have is with the government. It's not with the Earth being flat. Mm-hmm. And a lot of people can agree to that somewhat of the government issue, right? Mm-hmm. And so if we come across somebody in the future who is an expert in science or space or whatever, and is credible, and also can understand where this person is coming from as far as not having trust in the government, it would be a really healthy conversation to really get to some real solutions and be like, all right, let's see what.
Next episode on Strange Flavor, just have them both. We all block
Bill
out
Nye.
our cameras and have them just go off on our.
We have Bill Nye versus David Weiss. But yeah, I mean, like
set up a platform for like people on different sides to debate. We're the new cut.
Yeah, and honestly, like on this podcast and in real life, that is my interest. I think that's a lot of our interest. Is like, how can we learn what we've given a platform to and an opportunity for someone to speak, and further a conversation to learn more. Yeah. Right.
I think it made me not like take everything at face value. Like I was actually like starting to question like things here and there, like not trust everything at face value. I think that's like a pretty important lesson. Like do your own research, look at things, and they might be different than what they seem.
Yeah, I think that's a huge lesson of really any situation that we've faced is just do your own research, make up your own mind, and don't just blindly follow anything. And again, I will say real quick that David Weiss was an extreme example of that. So we're not saying, that you should consider that the Earth is flat or whatever. If that's on you, honestly. If after that episode that's where you went towards, I'm sorry.
I
but
mean, he
what
promoted
the
his
heck?
app
But-
and everything, so if
yeah.
you wanted it, you could find it.
Yeah, but that was what our intention was. What's the other comment that you wanted to share?
You all need to find yourselves a job.
Agreed. Great point. Great point. And that is the real solution.
Wait, how did they know?
Right.
That's awesome. All right. Well, hopefully this, I don't see how it could be, but this next guest is not as controversial as the last. But we are excited to have this person on. So the stranger today is the writer and director of Code Switched, which is a popular comedy series that follows the lives of South Asian Americans in Chicago. We're talking to him about developing the show as well as the brown sitcom scene and where he plans to take all of this attention next. Please welcome Karan Sunil. Do you know that we have, well, you have Code Switched, but we have Brown Code. Now, this is an interrogation. Did you or did you not know about Brown Code, and why did you steal our idea?
I did not know about Brown Code.
False.
I did not know about Brown Code.
2017, Brown Code.
That I did not. This is the first time hearing of it, actually.
No, I'm just joking.
What
it's
is-
not? It's nothing like Code Switched.
Yeah.
What's the
very-
Brown Code? Give me what's Brown Code?
Brown Code, basically, we have a cultural comedy channel called Ronal Ponal. And
Yeah.
Brown Code was a series we put on there. It was actually the first collaboration that me, Shamir, and Amber did together. It was inspired by MTV's Guy Code or
We
Girl
actually
Code.
stole their.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So it's just a chain of theft. Yeah.
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 Ending with you.
Perfect.
Yeah. And I'll carry it on. I'll carry on the legacy. I'll
Yeah.
keep stealing.
No, but basically we would invite brown people of all different backgrounds to give us the code of different things. Like, you know,
Yeah.
what do you do when you don't have a lota in public, and like all different types like that. Like, what's in
Oh.
your yogurt container, you know?
Yeah.
Like, all
Yeah, it's
different
not yogurt.
things like that. It's not yogurt. No, but that was when we saw Code Switched. I heard of it for the first time with one of the collaborators we were doing during Brown Code, and they were really hyping this show up. So I think it had been in the air, and just a few months ago, maybe a month or two ago, I saw that it was finally on YouTube and people were talking about it, and I decided to check it out. And it's only posted in October of 2020, right?
Yeah. It was 4 days before the election. Yeah.
Oh wow! How long had you been working on it since then? Because I think we heard of it a while before that.
Yeah. It's been a almost 3-year journey.
So you came up with the idea 3 years ago, and then have been basically trying to write it out and find people for it and find ways to budget it.
Yeah, it had been a very long process, but I mean, I'd come up with it in 2016, and we started the process of making the show in its first stage, which was a crowdfunding campaign to raise the money to do a season of a web series. And then, so I think we really started, I consider the real beginning of the project when I held these focus groups so I was in Chicago, and I was I was working in the film scene freelance. I was going to film school, and I was also working at the IO Comedy Theater in Chicago, doing digital stuff. So I was around comedians and like stand-ups and improvisers all day, but I wasn't a stand-up or an improviser. So I was caught between the film world and the comedy world. And so I had basically, at that time, I thought of this show, which is not a novel premise at all, just a friendship show with brown people in it. And but it was something I didn't have growing up. And so I actually started to write it out as a concept at the end of 2016, and then 2017 I held these focus groups with young brown people, basically brown people between 18 and like 26 in Chicago at different universities like UIC, DePaul, just like schools around me, to get a better understanding of what it means to be like a millennial brown person in first generation, second generation in the US. And I had lived that experience personally, but if we use the word brown, if we use South Asian, like this is billions of people, and our stories are so vast and so different. And so I wanted to, especially because the show was about a group of friends, that are not all Indian or Hindu or, it's an eclectic group. I wanted to talk to people like that. So that's why I really consider the beginning of the project. And from that point, must have been early 2017.
Is that how you pitched it?
I was
like,
gonna say,
I'm making a show for brown people, come be a part of my focus group, or even when you were doing the crowdfunding. Is that what you pitched?
Yeah. I was pitching it as a friendship show with brown people. And what happened was when I got those people in the focus groups, a lot of them were, friends of friends, and, they were just looking for something to do in the evening. Yeah. And I couched it as that. It's like, hey, I'm building this show, and I'm trying to field experiences and understand more before I do it. And then in the crowdfunding campaign, we, translated that language there too, which was talking about a group of friends. And I used a lot, first generation is a big part of it too. And that's, I would say, been a part of the process of the show from the beginning is like, what does it mean when you are the product of an immigrant? And if you are the product of an immigrant, whether you immigrated yourself or your parents did, what is that life like? Because when you're so connected to your immigration story, the stakes are so high. But at the same time, we're at a point where, we're in a country and in a time where there's just a million ways to ball out and make horrible decisions. And it's like, I'm really interested in the combination of those two. And I think first generation folks have a very unique worldview in that we want to reap the benefits of the hard work that our past generations have put in and really like make bad decisions and live for the moment. But at the same time, like very, very few of us, I think, operate daily life without thinking about the stakes, thinking about like, man, my parents busted their ass to get here. Or like, even taking aside the expectations they might put on you, but the guilt you feel yourself, and I think a lot of that was started there. And I think that's how I was also bringing people together is like, hey, look, we all live this in some way. Let's put it in a show.
Go ahead, Amber. Sorry.
Since this was obviously you're pitching in his idea that hasn't been done yet, was there shows that you had maybe watched that inspired it, or like the style of a show that kind of you felt like really spoke to what you were trying to create?
Yeah, when I first started the journey of making the show, there were actually much fewer of the more mainstream, shows with brown representation. We didn't have Patriot Act, we didn't have Rami, we didn't have a lot of those shows.
Never Have
at the time. Yeah, we didn't have Never Have Ever. So at the time, the Mindy Project was out, and the first season of Master of None had just come out. But I think the shows that I was looking at were those 90s sitcoms. I was looking at a lot of Seinfeld and Friends, and then I was also looking at actually Atlanta, which had just come out.
Yes.
Yeah.
Look at some of my questions. I said because your intros, whenever you had the brown code switched, was like very similar to the Atlanta thing.
Like if you move an object and it said code switch.
And it was
it's embedded into the world. Yeah. And
you could really see that inspiration there.
Absolutely. Atlanta was, I would say, the biggest inspiration of the show. And it's a very different show from Atlanta. But I think I learned a lot of lessons from watching that show on how you actually, what does it mean when you portray a certain group of people that within that group are also extremely different. And when you put class in there, when you put, identity, upbringing, and also location. That's the other thing is like, Atlanta, obviously the title, but like that show feels and breathes the city that it's in. And I think the big important thing for me was like, I wanted to make a show that felt like Chicago. And so that was, but I would say definitely.
I just want to say, like, I think you really did put in a universe into that show. Like, I felt like I was in a different world, but I kind of understood it. And it did feel like Chicago, and like the sweaters that people were wearing, like UIC, it's like, I did feel like I was in this different world. And I
appreciate that.
In small amount of episodes. So
thank you.
Yeah, they were
really
all like 12, 15 minutes, but only 5 episodes you did get a grasp of like a good amount of like what the characters, even though there were so many characters in these small episodes, like what they were going through.
And it gave that 90s feel that you're talking about. Because that's kind of... I've been binging 90s shows, and I was like, why does this feel so comforting? And it's because it gave me that feel.
Yeah. It's well, thank you. I really appreciate it. And, I think I'm very interested in world building because I do think that, like, if we're talking about portraying or showing narratives and showing people like us and putting representation. I mean, people love to use representation and diversity as the words, but like, what does that mean, right? Like, what does it mean to do that? And I think it, more than anything, you're world building. You're putting people in our shoes. And I think that actually goes beyond putting a face on a screen or giving a name. I think you actually have to put people in our world. And I think about first generation folks, and our stories are so, they cannot be encapsulated in one show. And even brown people, I do not think Code Switch should or can, encapsulate the South Asian experience. But I think a lot of us are caught between the suburbs and the city. That's a big part of our upbringing. What does it mean? Like, and a part of that was like, how do I put you in that world? Like, there were specific episodes where I wanted to put you in the suburbs, and there's certain episodes I want to put you in the city. And I think for me, that's what it was like growing up. Was, the suburb was not just an escape, but it came with its own identity. But then when I came to the city, it was more of a different identity too. So I wanted to actually put those together as a part of the world building.
What is your thought on making a brown sitcom versus the brown version of a sitcom? You know what I mean? Because there was a Jay-Z music video, actually, Moonlight. And at the intro of that, it basically, I think it follows the whole Moonlight debate that happened with the controversy of the Oscars, right? And at the beginning of the video, this guy, he's trying to make, I believe it's a black Friends, so a black version of the show Friends. So does that ever go through your mind of like, how am I not going to make brown Friends and make something that's original to a brown sitcom?
Yeah, because it's really interesting you say that, because one of the questions I'd asked myself early on was, because a lot of those 90s shows were things I looked at, was would it be a victory if we just built that, if Seinfeld had brown people and it was the same show and had brown people? I would say it would be great because we'd see brown people on screen, but it didn't feel honest to our experience, because I think that there's not really consequences for those characters for a lot of that show, but the idea of doing anything you want and then at the end of 30 minutes showing up to a cafe or a couch and laughing it off is not our experience. I think we face, as South Asian folks, as immigrants, we face consequences for being selfish. And I think that was as interesting to me as showing the selfishness. So that's why I felt like Code Switch was like, it wasn't just a matter of like, oh, it's just the hijinks of Friends, but like, what does it mean when you do make selfish decisions? You lose friends, you lose jobs, you lose respect. And those are things we care about a lot, I think, as people. And you add on to that, I think the other part is the generational element. I think a lot of millennials, we want our cake and eat it too. Like it's not just like, we want to be, a lot of us are very ambitious and we want to accomplish things. But like, I think most of my friends who are millennials and are brown, like, we want to be great at work, but we also want our family to love us, and we want to have a lot of friends, and we want all those things. And I think when you make decisions to have all those things, I think you end up actually losing yourself in the process. And I think that's also where the show's title came from.
Do you find yourself code switching often in your life? Like, what's your background and upbringing, and what's the, switch of codes that you have to personally take on?
Yeah, I say all the time, every day, but, and also looking back in my life, I was born in India. I was born in Bangalore. I lived there till I was 9. I was a black sheep there, and I've always been a black sheep in almost every environment or community I've been in some way. Because in India, I went to, a very rigid school where it was not just like, put your head down and do work, but like, you weren't encouraged to be creative or really share your thoughts. And I really struggled in that environment, and then when my family moved to the US, to Seattle, I thought I was done. I was like, great, I'm moving to America. Like, people are going to care about what I'm into. And when I showed up, I was actually, just super confused because I didn't, the America I was sold on was the America on Cheers and Friends. And it wasn't like the world
Also,
I entered.
It's Seattle.
It's Seattle, so that's right? It's not New York. It's not Chicago. It's not LA. Exactly. So I was confused there. But the other thing was, like, I grew up in Seattle around a lot of rich brown people because a lot of them were in tech. And that's the other thing. It's like San Francisco, all the uncles and aunties were working for Amazon and Microsoft and Starbucks and all of that, right? So it wasn't just the fact that they were mostly in tech and medicine, but they were rich. And I think that really influenced me because it's like, it's not just the pressures of like, you should be a doctor, you should be in tech, you should be that, but also like, we're fucking rich. And it's when you see that in front of you, it only further makes you want to pursue those paths, and I was never good at math or science. I was really, really bad at school. And so I felt like a black sheep even there. Like, all my friends were like way higher achieving than me, and all their families had more than us, and I felt different there, and so I was code switching to try to fit in that space.
Did you have brown friends, or was it a diverse group of friends?
I think growing up, I had a very binary group. I had white friends and I had brown friends. I did not have a lot of friends of color that were not brown, and I think it's because I grew up in a very white and very South and East Asian community. And so, a lot of us, I made a lot of my friends because they were friends of my parents, because my parents, as brown people at these large like my dad worked for Microsoft, they flock to other aunties and uncles that work at Microsoft, and then suddenly you're having dinner parties on the weekends, and then their kids are your friends, and then suddenly like that becomes my bubble. And then the white kids at school that, I was trying to impress or trying to fit in with, and that became my social circle. And that's until when I graduated high school, I just didn't feel like I fit in. And when you asked about my friend group, I felt like I didn't fit in with my white friends, and I didn't fit in with my brown friends because I was the one, I was the only Indian kid in my entire high school that was in basic math, the only one. And the only people that were pointing that out was not even the white kids. It was the brown kids that were like, oh yeah, Karan, he's not bright.
He's not bright.
He's not very bright, because he's just doing basic math. Yeah, and then the judgment from uncles and aunties and stuff. So I didn't feel like I related in that space. So I moved to Chicago because I wanted to go to a place that had a lot more, had a different worldview, but also had a place where I could meet more people. And
were
then
you
when I moved
into film and everything by the time why did you just decide to move to Chicago?
Actually, that was the other thing, was like part of me not being good at math and science was I was a very creative kid, and I actually wanted to be a painter pretty much my whole childhood. And I was doing a lot of fine arts, drawing, painting, that's what I spent a lot of my free time doing. And
were your parents like, what are you doing? Give me that brush. Let me hit you with that in the back of the head.
It's interesting. My parents were... I'm very blessed that my parents have supported me in my creative endeavors, but I'm also... I think it's not just from... It was the fact that my parents didn't get to do what they wanted to do. Specifically, my dad. He didn't really get to do what he wanted to do, and he didn't... And there was family, all that, he wanted me to have a chance to do what I wanted to do. But when we moved to America, and me being a kid, I think he saw that, and my mom saw that, this was such a difficult change for me, and they wanted to try to at least embrace some ways of me trying to fit in. And that was that. But the other thing is it was very clear at an early age that I would absolutely fail in any kinds of of the rigid environments that they put me in. So they were like, if we push him into medicine or law or thing, he will actually fail, because this kid takes 50 minutes to understand a concept that I am explaining to him very night and day. So once my dad was like, oh, math is not going to do it and science is not going to do it, he was like, all right, well, so they kind of supported me out of fear and out of also, I think, wanting me to be who I am. So I think I'm very blessed in that regard. I know that's not always the case, but I think it has a lot to do with, we were figuring it out as a family moving in after I was born. And so I think that was part of it.
Yeah. Going back to with your friend group, on the show, you have a very diverse, group of brown people, as you mentioned. You even have, we follow the story of like it's a gay Korean guy, and there's black folks in the show. Is it ever, especially for such a short series, overwhelming to try to be that inclusive when you're making a show like that?
I think when you set out on the goal of being inclusive, I think it becomes that way, because it doesn't feel, obviously when I say that, it's like, you want to be inclusive and want to include stories, but like when you're like, I need to diversify, I need to, like, when those become the mandates early on, I think that's when it becomes not just not honest, but like you end up having to connect the inclusion to the creative. Whereas I was interested in it being part of the creative. So like in Chicago, we had the faces that we have in the show that are not brown, for example, the friends of the lead characters, because those were the communities that I was around and was embraced by. And, when I went to the comedy community is a big, big part of this show, because in Chicago, almost the entire cast are comedians from that scene in Chicago. And I was around these establishments, these theaters, Second City, IO, all that, where all of these people flocked to. But, just like any institution, these are white institutions. So when I was going to these shows, even the idea of improv and the idea of stand-up, it's like these golden examples that everyone is trying to come and learn and be. But what I noticed was like the Black comedians, the East Asian comedians, the South Asian comedians, when we were given stage time or we were given an opportunity to talk about it, we were making fun of the pain that comes with existing and growing up the way we have. And I think that was just infinitely more interesting to me than like, I want to be really good at improv. It was like, when I got to shows, I noticed like a lot of the artists of color were like offering a new perspective onto something very relatable and very painful, actually. And so that's why I was like, when I wanted to make a show that put them in the forefront, is like, who are the POC comedians in Chicago at this time? So I think that's where the inclusion came. So it felt natural. Like, I think... I
mean, even watching it, I just realized like most of the main characters are people of color. Like I just realized that it wasn't like, oh, shoehorn in your face. Like, oh, these are everyone. It's a person of color. So,
well, that's why I asked that too, is because I think nowadays we have a lot of like forced diversity. Mm-hmm. And when I started the show, actually, that's what I was scared of, right? I was like, oh God, I hope this isn't like, yes, we're brown everything. Because there is a lot of that out there, a lot of it. And we see, because we try our best to promote and watch and pay attention to other people who are doing great things like that. But sometimes when it's just like the show or the skit or whatever sort of piece you're offering is just about being that thing, and there's no story, there's no problem or deeper understanding to what's really going on, that becomes really annoying, and it becomes like it becomes just for us, and nobody else could watch it, and it's just like we can applaud and pat ourselves on the back, and I hate that. So as Shamir is saying, I'm glad that going into it, you did see that deeper understanding. Is that ever a line that you have to like figure out, where to go from?
Yeah, it is, because when you, I think a lot of times when we're thinking about diversity, oftentimes when we have to qualify it. And to me, I just thought about like, who do I spend time with? Who are the people that are actually in my life who I connect with? And I think with Code Switched, yes, I walked in with an intention to make it very South Asian. There's 26 speaking South Asian roles in the show because I was doing it because that's a lot of my experience, but also B, like I was kind of trying to prove something. I was trying to be like, look, this is what a show would look like if it cast a lot of brown people, and look, like it is not that, it's got its own flavor, but it's not radicalizing the medium in any way. And so that was part of it. But then I was like, who are the people that we relate to, and who are the people that are actually in our lives? And that's what, a lot of the folks in the show are our friends. But I was thinking, when we're trying to find that line of like, oh, I need this many people, I need this many black faces in the on the screen, I need this many brown faces. And I think that's when, like you said, I think a lot of times people that ask those questions are people who don't understand the value of putting ourselves on screen, right? I think there's like
it's just
networks
not creative.
It's not creative. Yeah, like corporations, networks, a lot of places, they're the ones that they want the PR, they want all that. So if that's the goal, then you're going to actually think about it in a rigid way. What's the percentages? How many numbers? Whereas if it's like, I want to tell this type of story, and you actually bet on creators of color, they will naturally put in the diversity because they're being honest to their experiences, right? And so I think that's like, I use the word honesty because this is what I lived like. And if I was somebody that only hung out with white people and I was honest to that experience, then you would get that show. You would get the show of where I'm the one brown person and everybody I hang out with and love and are invested in are white people. Then, that's what you're going to get.
I actually have trouble understanding when it is a show that is, say, a brown girl that falls for the white guy, right? Mm-hmm. We immediately get the backlash. Oh, another one of these, right? Which is understandable. But my argument is, what if that is the story, right?
Yeah.
What if the story is that this guy happens to drive the taxi or something, or it's that one of those typical sort of stories that happens to be this person's experience. When you were figuring out what to write about all of these people's stories, you said that you did the little study groups, right? How did you figure out what stories were going to work? And did you run into the trouble of like trying to avoid the stereotypical stories at all?
Yeah, I think it was because a lot of people do live that experience, and it was more the questions that I asked them, and also it was like what stood out to me. And, when I was in those focus groups and I was talking to a lot of brown people, I was getting a lot of the stories of experiences that I've seen before on screen,
and did you purposely avoid that?
I think it was the stuff that interested me. And I think in that way I was avoiding it because it was less interesting to me. I was flocking towards the stories that were more interesting because, like in Code Switched, there's a narrative in there about a Pakistani Muslim girl who dates this Hindu Indian guy. And it was something that when I was in those focus groups talking to them, that was a very common, subject that people were talking about, especially at a young age when like you're, you don't have to, you can actually enjoy like the short-term relationships and it's kind of just there. You're in college, you're just meeting so many different types of people. I noticed that a lot of folks were, I met a lot of Muslim friends and a lot of like Hindu friends that were dating, a Hindu dating a Muslim dating a Hindu. And then it's like, they all hit that wall at some point of like, all right, got to take the next step, got to involve the family, got to do that. And then at that point, a lot of them ended up crumbling. But then I was like, why, right? Like, why is that? I wanted to know beyond just like the religious difference and whatnot, like, what is it? And what I noticed that was interesting to me was less about my parents won't accept it. And it was more about almost judging or assuming what the road would be for that relationship. Like a lot of them didn't even entertain the idea with their parents because they were afraid to, and I was much more interested in that. It's like, well, why are you making that choice? Like, what is it? Is it actually because you don't actually really love this person? Because it's like, if you really love this person, wouldn't you at least challenge it, right? And so those are these questions I'd asked, and I was more interested in that and less interested in the, we'll disown you if you go with this person and stuff that I think we'd seen before.
That's so true.
It was,
I think in a typical show or movie, we do see that the brick wall, as you call it, is the parents. Yeah. Ultimately, it's always about coming back to the family, and we actually didn't explore that.
Yeah, but without any spoilers, like you did tackle that in a different and unique way, and you kind of explained it in the actual show, but it's really cool.
Yeah, it was, and I, by the way, the other thing I was looking at, which was part of what we'd seen before, was I was seeing a very common narrative of brown men basically denying, like, not just brown men who were chasing white women, but also the part of it was like not including it. There's different movies you can point to and stuff, but it was brown men rejecting brown women for white women. That was like the most common narrative I'd seen. Way more common, honestly, than I'd seen the brown woman reject the brown man.
Amber's like,
and yeah, there's
right.
a lot. We can name names, we can point stuff out, but I'm like, I looked at that, and part of what I want to do in Code Switch was, I wanted to show spoiler alert, I wanted to show a brown woman reject a brown dude, and not for a white person, but because, she's got other shit to do and this isn't right for her right now, and so.
No, that's right.
That's the other thing. I was more interested in that. So a little bit of that was reactionary to the time. We've seen more stories since then because we shot the show in 2018. But when I was doing it then, I actually wanted to show like the opposite of that, because we'd seen, I didn't think it would be additive to the space in any way if it was like this brown dude that was like, nah, you're sweet and we can relate over certain things, but I'm gonna go date this white girl. I think that was the thing I was
just for
interested in.
funsies. You should have had the brown girl just be like, let me go for a white man now.
Yeah, that's
just for fun.
That's just for exactly, just to like,
an extra episode.
Just that should have been the bonus.
This is why you
material.
don't make the show, and he does. Just kidding.
For sure.
Amber's show would be so funny. Okay, so wait, so you're Hindu Indian, right?
Yeah, I'm Indian. I'm South Indian. My family's from Kerala, and we're Malayali. We speak Malayalam, and I'm Hindu born, but I didn't grow up in a very religious home.
Sure.
So I think my Hindu faith is not a big part of my life, but it's also something I don't run away from.
Sure.
Like a cultural.
So my question was that, you mentioned there's Zara, who's the Pakistani Muslim character. When you put a character out there like that, do you face backlash yourself for putting this character in that situation?
In what situation? Sorry.
So when she's going after a Hindu guy, an Indian, like often you see the clash between either the nations or the religions. Did you face any sort of backlash or criticism towards that?
No, I didn't. Not in the process of making the show, actually, because I think, I didn't face. You're talking about backlash of
the Muslim community, basically.
Yeah, no, I didn't. And I think a big part of that was Sabine Siddiq, who plays the Zara character. She was a big part of the process of making the show from the beginning. The moment we cast her, I didn't want her to just show up at the call time and get it done. I think it was like, I ran every script by her. We had discussions about scenes. I wanted to understand her perspective, and we made changes to the story based on her thoughts. And a lot of that was she gave the lens of, she herself is a Muslim Pakistani woman, but she's also somebody who her faith is important to her, and she is a practicing Muslim. And I think a lot of that perspective came from that. So we haven't faced backlash, but I would credit that to her in coming in and really sharing what I think was important to her. And there were moments of of fear. There was definitely things that we were trying to tackle that Sabine was like, I don't want all my friends at the masjid to see this, and like, I don't want, all the aunties or uncles to see this. So those were really interesting moments because we weren't just shying away from them. We weren't just saying, all right, we can't put these because there'll be judgment. Yeah. We were actually all right, let's take a second look and see which ones are worth exploring and which ones are not, so.
What a career she has chosen to try to avoid that.
What was that?
I said, what a career she's chosen to try to avoid that. Like in the long run,
Is that why you didn't write any kissing scenes in?
That is a part of it. I think it's a part of it. there, Sabine, I think the other thing was like we wanted to make it was such a fun environment, and such an environment where everybody just wanted to hang out, and a big thing for me was, as the creator of the show, I wanted to set the precedent, like this is a show about us and not me with you in it. And a big part of that is like, what are the scenes you're comfortable doing, what are the scenes you're not comfortable doing, and we had those conversations early on, so that was part of it. But but Sabine being a stand-up, I think that was by the way, like I found her, like the 5 South Asian leads, there was a whole journey on even finding all of them. And with Sabine, I met her and first saw her at a stand-up show at a Mexican restaurant. It was an open mic at a Mexican restaurant, and it was 2 hours of some of the worst comedy I've ever seen, but she was hosting it, and there was just something so intrinsically interesting about her life. And like when we started to talk more, the fact that she is practicing Muslim Pakistani woman who's also doing stand-up in Chicago, like she's already juggling worlds, and the show is about juggling worlds. So I think like we were, I was like, well, the show will benefit so much from getting her perspective on how to do that.
Yeah. Was it important for you or necessary at all to have the actors be of similar background to the characters? So like a Muslim playing a Muslim, a Hindu playing Hindu, Sikh, whatever it might be. Was that important?
It was super important. And almost every single person in the show is playing a version of themselves that is, we didn't really we had 1 or 2 examples of like a Muslim playing a Hindu and Hindu playing, that itself is a really interesting conversation, because I think with all this stuff, there isn't a specific rigid line,
Sure.
These are all questions like, okay, do we want non-South Asians playing South Asians? Probably not. But do we want, what's the conversation in it? So the reason I had there was a 1-to-1 relationship in that was, I think that there was a lot of texture that they could bring and honesty that they could bring. So because one thing is I didn't do casting calls for this show. I handpicked everybody in the show.
Oh, wow.
So the role was, no one was auditioning for the roles. The role was the characters were already thought of in some way in a very base level.
So this is like a group project. It's not like like you guys did this together.
We really did this together as a community in Chicago. Like whether it's the funding, it's the putting together the production, it was all, this is a grassroots effort. And so like with the 5, I knew I wanted a Hindu Indian, I wanted a Muslim Pakistani, I wanted a South Indian Christian, which is something we never really see on media either. And then I found people that were that. And then we built the characters together. I mean, I always had a direction and I knew where I was going, but actually sculpting it and it was important to me because, like I said, I can't tell all these stories myself. And so I wanted to actually have the performer be able to provide that texture. But also it was, I had the ability because this is actually the benefits of the indie route that I took, was that no one was telling me I can't do something. And because, there was no mandate, I was just like, yeah, let's just get people to play a more honest version of themselves.
I'm curious about you talked about indie. What was the crowdfunding process like? How much did you guys make, and how much money went into this thing?
The crowdfunding process was definitely, very difficult. And I think probably the reason why I have a few gray hairs and am stressed, but so basically we raised about 30 grand to make the show. So we made the whole show on 30 grand. And we did that.
Did you know you wanted to make it with that budget? Because it looks very high quality. Or was that I'm definitely going to make it high budget? Well, I don't know if that's high, but really good looking in that way.
It's very low budget for what we accomplished. I think for me, it wasn't all right, 30 is the way, we'll get this product out of 30. It was more so that when I went into the crowdfunding campaign, I didn't have myself. I was not known online. I didn't have a following. We didn't have celebrities. We didn't have companies. We had no additive element that would bring about which would guarantee any form of fundraising. And so 25K is what I placed the goal on Indiegogo as, because it was an amount of money I felt I know I could make something with. However, it was also more money than I felt I could just raise. It was a combination of dreaming a little bit, but also I know I could make something. But it wasn't until the money came through. So we raised when the Indiegogo campaign ended, we'd raised a little under 25, and then, brown people being brown people, a lot, after the deadline ended, I got a lot of like, oh wait, I want to donate in PayPal last minute, donations, and we would cross to the 25. But we had a woman named Komal Minhas from Toronto, who's an entrepreneur, an amazing human. She came across our trailer, loved it, and she came in and donated, the rest of the money we needed to cross to the next level, because she believed in what we were trying to do. And so we were able to go to 30K and
Nice.
make the show. So it was, but I will say the reason the show looks the way it looks and feels the way it feels is because of the creative team and everybody buying into it. So David Hughes and Michael Ray are my DP, editor, and producers. They are super talented, and they took basically no money, and they just bought in, and we all like bootstrapped it. There's a organization called Open TV in Chicago, a nonprofit that donated so many things to us, whether it's relationships, whatnot, and a nonprofit called Full Spectrum in Chicago. We just went out and found people that were interested in increasing representation, but also like putting a show together like this, and we all pooled resources to get stuff for free. Went to restaurants. There were restaurants in Chicago that gave us free food, and that's how we made the money work. There's no way we would have made the show for 30K if we were just doing a typical like financing package. It was really like people bought in, and yeah.
So what was the goal for it? Were you supposed to go around and try to sell it to streaming services? It's on YouTube right now, but like, what is that? What the goal was, or how were you supposed to?
No, the goal was never to sell it. The goal was never to use it as a proof of concept for anything. The goal was this is both the means and the end. And I think that's why I was adamant about making the production quality be there, and all the pieces was, I was like, it's very simple. I wanted to give our people this show because I didn't have it growing up. And I felt like, how can I do something that can be the product itself? So now when the show is out, like, this is a full show. It's a full world we tried to build. And so the goal was like, we have a shot to just make something by itself. And it is the whole product. Of course, in the process, like, I have, built versions of it that can be scaled to TV and adapted. And that's something I'm looking at right now. But the intention and the goal was never to make it to sell it. The goal was to like put a show out there for people to watch.
That's really interesting, because the reason I asked the Muslim thing earlier was because we see shows like Rami, and I'm forgetting the name of the one. It was the hijabi skateboarder.
Hala.
I forget. Hala. Yeah. And it's heavily criticized by the community that I guess it's representing. I guess the debate of the creators is saying that it's a story, it's not representing necessarily a group of people. But I say that to say other people outside of the community like it a lot. The community itself, for a lot of people, it doesn't sit right. This show is different because going through the comments, anybody can go through them right now. It's just like there's so much positive feedback, and brown people really feel like it's made for them. I don't know how non-brown people feel about it, but that was just kind of like an interesting thing to see for the first time. Same with Never Have I Ever. A lot of backlash on that.
Yeah, that's a really interesting point. I think part of it is when a show is about one lead, and I think that's a similarity between the examples there. Is like you get to put a lot of exploration into that character, and thus like a lot more room to criticize. I think the other thing that is, South Asians as people, we're we're challenging to make content for, and I think that's part of I will always do it, and I always think it's worth it, and I'll always put time into it, but it is not easy. And I think it's not easy because we are not always the best about supporting our own, because I think there's a lot of times we expect one piece of representation to speak for all of us. And when you look at a thing like faith, you look at Islam, like, that's not a country, that's not a town, that's not a city, that is truly universal. And there's no way Rami could have possibly encapsulated the Muslim experience. Hala, never have I ever, the experience of being a young brown girl, like, it's impossible. And I think the goal is to never do that. But I think a lot of it is a byproduct of where we're at with representation. Like, we don't get more, it's only recently that we get more than one show a year with a brown person. So when Rami is the first of its kind, it faces the challenge of when you are the first of something, and everyone is so excited because, yes, we all want this, and then we all want it to be the thing that makes up for the years of us thinking about our plight and all that. And when it doesn't, it's challenging for us, and I think it's a question I talk a lot about and ask a lot about with my friends of creators who are brown. Like, how do we make stuff for our own people and deal with that backlash? So I think it's very simple to be like, this show is about a Muslim person, or this show is about an Indian person. We immediately compare it to our lives. Oh, this character is not doing what I do. This isn't fair to our people. So I think there's a lot of assumptions we make as audiences. But at the same time, like, I think, I don't know, I just think the audience should be trusted. That's the other part of it that makes it really kind of a double-edged sword, is that I don't believe in creators being like, forget the audience, I'm just going to do this anyway. It's a really tough balance on juggling both those things.
As you have talked about this whole project, it sounds a lot like this was like a creative endeavor, passion project for you, but it doesn't seem like you've really spoken on your passion for like directing or writing or anything like that. Is that because it was more so just something that you had passion for as a project specifically, or do you really have, a passion for writing and directing?
Yeah, definitely. I think a lot of my conversation about Code Switch was just like, because there's such a community element to it, I always want to give justice to that. But yeah, I'm a writer, director. This is my my real passion in life. I quit painting, which was what I thought was my passion in life for many, many years, because it wasn't collaborative. And for me, writing, specifically TV, I work in TV. I work on the show Zoe's Extraordinary Playlist on NBC. And it is, to me, a writer's room is a place that I love so much because it's so highly collaborative. I want to work with people. And I think that's why I love directing as well, is it's creative and we get to tell stories. I'm a storyteller. I really believe in like, finding ways to process what we live in and put it in something fun and entertaining. But writing and directing has really pulled me because it's such a collaborative medium. And I think that's like where my passion lies. And I think TV, directing, these are the things that I like to do. And it's fulfilling to me because I get to work with people. And in Code Switch kind of being an example of, you can make something great when you have a vision, but you let people enter it. I think that's a big part of it.
What's next for you, and like where do you hope to go in this lane?
Yeah, I'm always writing and developing new projects. Right now, like I said, I'm working on Zoe's Extraordinary Playlist. I'm working on other projects that I'm trying to take off the ground. I'm working with a program, Film Independent Project Involved, to do a short film right now with a group of other fellows. I'm a writing fellow there, and there's fellows of other backgrounds, directors and cinematographers and stuff, and we're all making short films. And next year, or I guess this year, 2021 now, I'm trying to, even though Code Switch started out as a web series that was intended to be a web series, I think since the show came out, and got a lot of positive reception. A lot of people have been wanting to see more of this, and I think the goal is to give the world more Code Switch, whether that's
Season 2?
Season 2 of a web series, whether that's a TV show version. You know, we're looking at that right now. So I'm working on a couple different projects, a couple TV projects, and like a feature project that I'm writing. But in terms of this year, a lot of the attention is like, what's next for Code Switched?
Yeah, I know Shamir wanted to know that. We lost him in the middle of this, but
yeah, I was like, damn,
break.
it was in the middle of me talking about about like representing people, and he's like, I'm out, I'm done.
Yeah.
Nah, this doesn't represent me. No, we'll have to fill him in afterwards, or maybe we'll just keep that secret to ourselves. I wanted to also get your thoughts on what's out there currently, like, and you mentioned that, you know, we don't have a lot of options right now, which is probably why our communities are so critical when it comes to the stuff that's out there. But you know, what are your thoughts about like Aziz Ansari and Mindy Kaling and Hassan Minaj, Riz Ahmed, all these guys, Kumail Nanjiani, even Superwoman, who's, you know, making it
like Lily Singh and all them. Yeah, you know. I think, first of all, I'm very hopeful and encouraged and excited about the future, because I think the folks you just named, right? I think they're a wave of folks that really, I think they're highly criticized, and I'm not an exception. I've been there. I've criticized their work and them before. Yeah, we all have, right? Because we care, actually, really. That's the big thing, is we care. But I think what they did was they put a lot of I think as brown people, if we're trying to increase our representation in our stories, we need stars. We just need them. And they did that. Is they became stars, and they made it, you know, they made the idea of a brown person, you can at least point to somebody for the most part, which I think is absolutely essential. And I think they carried that weight. And I credit them for that. But I think the other thing is, like, they're not the answer to all of it. I think they've actually opened, I think they've unlocked the door that was locked for a very long time. What I'm really encouraged by and what I'm really excited about is there's a wave of South Asian creators right now that have followed that are actually opening that door. Like, there are so many, and also not just talented, but super diversified. It's not just writers, directors, actors. There's so many people in different realms of film and TV, but also other arts. And I'm really excited because a lot of us are using the internet to just make our stuff and put it out there and find audiences and grow. But the big thing is, I think we're supporting each other like never before. I think because we care about our culture being on screen, and we care about each other and supporting each other. I'm in LA. I have a lot of creator friends who are brown right now, who are all making our own work, and we're all show up for each other, you know, support each other's projects, invite each other to podcasts, you know, like do all that stuff that I feel the combination of the fact that we care about our community and we're diversified in our talent makes me think that the next 5 to 10 years, you're going to see an explosion. We're seeing the beginning of that, but you're really going to see an explosion of people on all formats. And I think part of that, I do credit, you know, Aziz and Mindy and Hassan and all that, from at least pointing, you know, you could point to something and be like, oh, that's possible. And before them, it was, you know, there wasn't a lot to point at. That's not possible. And I actually also credit like brown people, you know, the people that get enough shine are the brown people that had to play those terrorist roles and stuff in the 2000s, right? And the 90s.
You're
and
saying
the 80s,
shout out to terrorists.
Shouts out to all the people that played terrorists, that played taxi drivers, that played the stereotypes. Because the thing is, like, you know, forget the ones that don't care about our community, that feed into crabs in a barrel. They will not be remembered, and we don't want to work with them. But it's the ones that had no choice, right? Yeah. And they didn't have any example to point to, and no one was asking them for their story. And I feel like those are the folks that like actually are as a part of the process as the Hassans and Mindis and stuff, because we had something to react to. And I feel bad, you know, I feel like if they struck 10 years, 20 years later, they wouldn't have to do those roles. So I feel like we
had to have like the digestible browns to like kind of work that middle space that we had to get upset at for being digestible to white people, but not as true to us as we wanted them to be, for us to get the true brown people that we want.
Exactly. Like I remember I watched Outsourced was the first show I saw on like mainstream that had more than one brown person in it, right? And you watch that show, oh yeah, of course it's filled with stereotypes and it's not an accurate depiction of who we are as people, but that's because the creators were not, brown like that. But you look at that and I was reactive to that. I was like, we can do better than this. And then I was part of it, tried to do something. So I think it is important to have that. So I'm just really encouraged. I'm really excited. I think there's so much more that's going to happen. And, 2021, 2022, you're going to see so many new creatives that are emerging.
Yeah, it's just not all mainstream yet. And all of those guys that we named, they just happen to be in the mainstream. But yeah, you're right. There's so much out there. How can people support you, Karan? Where can they find you and follow you and keep up with everything that you're doing?
So you can follow me on Instagram at KSUNZZ. I'm not really on, I'm on Twitter. I'm not super active on Twitter, but just my first name, Karan Sunil, on there. But I think Instagram is where I really do spend a lot of, I'm not that social media like savvy or, I end up being like doing a lot of my creation on this outside and I try to disconnect, but that's where you can find me. I think Code Switched was, I put myself out of it a lot, I think, on the forefront. Like a lot of people actually don't, like a lot more people have seen the show than even know I exist. And I tried to take the backseat on it, but I think Code Switch was kind of like a wave, to support me, but to support the many, many folks that helped make it happen. So I think if you find me on social media, but for those, I'm assuming a lot of people listening to this have either seen the show or heard of the show in some way. I'm like, but check that out because there's so many awesome people that were involved in that you can connect.
We'll link everything on the in the description below.
Quick question. Is there going to be a season 2?
No, don't tell him. Don't tell him.
No.
Shamir, you'll have to listen back to the podcast to hear if there's going to be a season 2.
Dang it. It sounds bad.
Shamir, I hate to say this.
It sounds bad.
But I hate to say this, but we thought of all of season 2 while you were gone. Like we sat and we just while you were gone doing what you had to do, we just plotted out.
We went over
season
3.
We were considering season 3.
I also have a question. And while I love listening to you talk and like I was really absorbing your story, we are on a Zoom call and I did have to look behind you quite a few times. And this whole episode I've been trying to figure out if it's Beyonce or Solange, but it's Solange. And why do you have a picture of Solange behind you?
Okay, so it is Solange. It is a plexiglass of
one of those songs
of a song, Down with the Click.
Why?
Of her album On My Way Home, because I'm a massive Solange fan, huge Solange fan.
Okay.
And my friend Usman, who makes these plexiglasses, I reached out to him and I sent him like what are the songs, because he creates these like Spotify album covers. I put that in the background because Solange I'm just such a huge fan, and I think creatively I actually listen to a lot of her music before I write.
That's so interesting. You just got some massive Amber points.
Yeah,
Right,
I'm a part of the Beehive.
I see.
Does that mean that you're not a Solange? I don't get it.
A Beehive is Beyonce fan.
I know,
which means that that's her sister. So of course I'm,
But is there a side that like you usually people take, like Beehive versus whatever? Solange
No, I don't think they do.
I think that if you're a Beyonce fan, you respect Solange.
Exactly. I think so too. I have I think we got to stop pitting, great creatives. Right.
I was just because you're like, I'm a Beyonce fan. So I was like, is that the opposite side?
I'm a part of the Beehive.
But what's interesting? I have to shout out Solange because she's definitely going to listen to this. I have to shout out Solange because
she's actually next on the podcast. It's interesting.
She's next. Oh, really? She's. I want to know what her thoughts are on Mindy. But the thing about Solange, I have to credit a lot to outside of her talent is her sister is the biggest artist in the world and one of the probably top 5 most recognizable faces in the world.
For sure.
And she doesn't need her to feature on any of her songs. I think that's so crazy. That is amazing.
Giving her shout outs though.
Yeah, she do, but imagine being so talented where your sibling is the biggest artist in the world and you don't need him. I think that's
maybe I just need to give her more love and like really listen. And you've inspired me to do that today.
Please just listen to this album. It's amazing. I think I listen to it a lot before I write because it's very cinematic, actually. Like her music is very cinematic. And so it puts me in that space. But yeah, and also they're so different. I love that they're not the same artist. Like I think if she was Beyonce 2.0, I think we'd run into that. But yeah, shouts out Solange.
Yeah, I think you'd really love Jake Paul. He kind of is on a similar wave of not using his... Just Jake Paul never needed Logan to do his thing.
They didn't. You know, aren't we lucky to have the Knowles and aren't we lucky to have the Pauls? What would we do without them?
We get to learn so much.
Yeah,
I love that for
Truly.
us.
Also, like, shouts out beating the shit out of a dude to protect the.
Facts. Honestly, that whole elevator situation, mad respect that she was.
Mad Solange, yeah. Solange was like,
she put JC in his
you're gonna
place.
mess with the family?
My sister.
I thought he was talking about Jake beating up Nate. I don't know.
No. See, Karan, I like you.
This is shouts out. She was like, you know what? I'm gonna stand up for my sister. Beat the shit out of Jay-Z.
You cheated
he had
on my
no
sister?
chance, by the way. If you look at that elevator footage, the only reason she did not send him to the hospital is because, these are brands and these are like things we'll find out. But like, if this was just like a scrap
of one of the like most famous hotels where all celebrities stay at, like that door was gonna open any second.
Absolutely. If this was just in the neighborhood, if this was out at a place, like she would have destroyed him.
Absolutely.
Shamir, I might dip like you the last time. And just let them talk
Karan,
about
can you just be a co-host?
Yeah, why
on
did
here?
this conversation happen when I was gone? Why?
You should just be a co-host so that I have somebody to talk to.
Y'all
about
talk
these
about
things.
season 2, 3, and then when you come here,
Anytime I talk
Solange,
about any
Beyonce.
type of female artist or anything like this, they go into silence, and then I'm stuck talking to myself. So I'm glad you were here to like engage in a discussion with me.
I'm not glad I'm here.
You know what? I think Solange is she's shouts out Solange. She's an all-star. We good.
No,
you guys should actually get her on this podcast. Try it.
All right. The email is already sent. We'll arrange it.
Reach out to her team. I mean, how many South Asian led podcasts are hitting her up? Think about that.
That's true.
You're right.
You're right.
Niyati Hadia, get on it right now.
Yeah.
We're waiting. No, we'll I hope that'd be awesome. Like we're not gonna say no to that.
Yeah, like
But,
We're gonna be silent the whole time. It's just Amber and her talking.
Yeah.
honestly,
No, we'll invite Karan back on.
yeah,
like, we actually
And
have
I will
we
be
have so
silent and I
much-
will listen. I just want to sit and listen. Yeah,
That's so funny.
Can I ask you guys a question? Is that crazy? Does that break the?
It
No,
does
no,
break
no.
the fourth
That's-
wall, but
It
no.
depends on the question. Just kidding. Go ahead.
I've talked a lot. This is a sensitive subject, and it's something I've talked to a lot
it's
of my
gonna
friends
be
about.
so
You need
shallow.
us for season 2. Just say it. We're
Yeah,
down.
just say that. If you want us, you have us.
It is yes. This was actually the audition. This was the tape. And you heard me. I built the characters
Shamir didn't
around the
make it.
people.
Yeah, I left in the middle.
Yeah, he's just like.
Chances.
Can you imagine if we made season 2 and we cast everybody here except him?
I'd be so sad.
That would be so funny.
And then he has to do the podcast and have all of us on, and he has to ask us, "What's
Yeah.
season 3, guys?" Talk to us. What's? Are we getting a season 3?
Look, he's just writing bars on the spot. This is what he does.
It's gonna
people.
pain me.
Yeah,
What was the question?
My question. I wanted to ask you this question. I put it in our previous in the email, but sensitive because it was such a part of my upbringing. But Taco Bell ended the Mexican pizza as a menu item. I need to ask you guys this. Is anybody here interested in this subject, and has anybody have thoughts on this? Just have to ask.
Whoa.
I didn't even
never
know
had
they
the
had a
Mexican
Mexican
They've
pizza.
had Mexican pizza at Taco Bell?
Okay, so the answer is no, and I understand that nobody here cares about this.
I've heard of this
only
though.
one.
I've heard of this, and I know that there's people passionate about it. There was a great Mexican pizza at my school. I don't know if it was like the Taco Bell one, but if your pitch was to help out in some way, bring the pizza back, or just give you some sort of moral support for that, I support you.
I was sad the potatoes were gone.
Yeah, see, look, they're just, I don't understand who's, because the thing
It's
is
coming
Taco
back.
Bell.
It's coming back. They listened.
Really?
Yeah, I saw a tweet.
See, this is the power of having, you know, coming together to create a voice. We can get, these are the kind of things we can get done.
I think
know,
you're onto a
unite.
point here, though. Taco Bell is very innovative.
It's super innovative, and also it's such a part of brown culture, right? Like, I don't know, maybe it's in Chicago. It is like, do you know? Is this not a thing? Am I the only one?
I've never heard it be like a thing for brown people. I've heard
you know
like,
why?
No, because of help me out, bean burrito.
Yeah, it's the Mexican pizza, the bean burrito. It's the only
It's
fast food
not
place growing up that you could
veg.
sub meat out. And I think that's why, like, I think a lot of Hindus, a lot of Muslims, like, you could eat fast food and not,
Yeah,
and actually, like,
are
eat,
big about Taco Bell.
right? And Indians are big about it, but it's like, it was interesting because growing up in, like, the burbs, you know, and the idea of, like, going out wild on a Saturday is just like, yeah, we're just going to smoke and drink and go to Taco Bell. Like, that was the extent of the adventures. But
I thought you were just gonna say Taco Bell, but then you had smoking and drinking. In there.
and drink, yeah. And
So
then
it was
what
a
is-
wild night.
It was a wild night, but anyway, I wanted to know your thoughts on this. I guess it's not it was because when it happened, I had a lot of my friends like talk about it, but maybe that's just because I
That's
only
all
hang
of
out with
season
Taco Bell
2
fiends.
of Code Switch.
yeah,
Nacho
that
fries.
should, that
If
should
you're
be like a
gonna talk
subtle
about
thing.
If you're
A
gonna talk
subtle
about
little Easter
it
egg
needs-
in one of the
nacho
seasons.
fries, that's what you really need to discuss. Why do they keep taking that away?
Why do you? This is me
Supply and
talking
demand.
directly to the decision makers at Taco Bell. Find me.
Let's bring them
at
on the
Instagram
podcast.
handles that you created.
After Solange, it goes
At Taco
Solange and then
Bell.
Taco Bell. People that decide the menu. Those are the
This is
next
a
two
direct
guys.
message. I will work with you for season 2 of Code Switched because I want the, you know how like Friends or
This is the
Seinfeld
second
is,
podcast in a row we've had the people like marketing. For
yeah,
themselves.
this is you
Go
gotta
ahead.
shamelessly plug.
Of course.
Seinfeld's got the cafe. Friends has the apartment. Season 2 of Code Switch, all the brown friends will meet every episode at Taco Bell.
That's cute.
You heard
That's
it here
that's my
first, exclusively on Strange Flavors.
very authentic.
No, that's too funny. Karan, you've been incredible on this podcast. We're really extremely thankful for you sharing everything so much more in depth of the decisions that went into making this show, but also what makes you who you are. But there is one last question we ask at the end of every podcast. This is Strange Flavors, and since Shamir, you missed out on the big news, I'll let you
Okay.
ask that.
When is season 2 coming? No, I'm just kidding. If you could describe yourself as any flavor, what would it be and why?
If I could describe myself as any flavor, I would specifically describe myself as Jenny's ice cream lavender. Have we had this?
No,
Have we
of
had
course.
this?
What is that? What is Jenny's ice cream lavender?
Okay, but I'm
have
intrigued.
we-
Keep going.
Have you heard of Jenny's ice cream?
No.
Oh,
It sounds
Jenny
dairy
Craig?
free. It sounds dairy free for some
Is
reason.
it like Jenny Craig?
No, it is an ice cream company called Jenny's, and they make amazing ice cream. It's in LA. There's a lot of places in LA. It started in Ohio.
Is it Is it dairy free?
They have dairy-free options,
Okay, it sounds like a dairy free type company.
but I choose lavender ice cream as my flavor
You
because
like your ice cream to taste like flowers.
I like it to be earthy and based, like a natural flavor and
Wild berry
all-
lavender.
Wild berry lavender. I forgot the wild berry. Sorry about that. I would say I would describe that as my favorite. Something that you didn't think you wanted at first, but it makes you feel comfortable. That's the vibe I'm always trying to give.
You gotta love this. How do you not love this
was-
guy at the end of this podcast?
That was so good. Oh
It's
my god, I'm gonna cry.
because you're like, I don't want to have lavender ice cream. That's a Febreze,
Yeah.
Febreze.
smell, right? And then you taste it, and you're like, wow, my entire childhood is here. Like just the feeling
Wow.
of being home. That's what it is.
That was incredible. I give you. I can't believe you thought of that on the spot. But
That
that
was
is
really good.
that is amazing. This is why he's a writer.
Stand
Yeah.
up.
Wait, hold up. What do other people say? Do they say chocolate? Like, is that what they?
Well,
We'll
mostly
discuss.
the most popular ones are like Neapolitan or something like that because it's like, oh, I'm many things, and I call them out. I'm like, no, that's a lame answer.
It's
gotta
also
do
three
better.
things. It's specifically three things. It's
Yeah. Well, it's hard to think on the spot too, but like that answer was exactly what we wanted, and you did.
We've gotten good
amazing
things
job.
like spicy mango. They're like, oh, I'm spicy, but I'm sweet. But like, you know.
oh, spicy
Yeah.
mango. Yeah, I
But no.
implore everyone to have some Jenny's ice cream.
We'll try it.
I want to try this after this.
Yeah.
Intensely fruity brambly berry ice cream with a pop
The
of
wild
cinnamon
berry.
That's
and
good
lavender.
too.
The wild berry
Sounds
adds
great.
a little spice to the lavender.
Yeah, it's a little bit. It is like it's the wild card. Truly, literally. You know, it's like, oh, Karan is somebody I can talk to, but also at the same time, you know, can't be trusted. I think that's my vibe.
You're
I
the
ruined
twist
whole
right at
thing.
the end. Now we're left curious, but
Okay. Wow.
no, the first part was definitely true, Karan. Again, thank you so much for coming on here. We're definitely going to be supporting you and looking out for whatever you have coming up next. And yeah, we can't wait to see what it is. So thank you.
Thank you so much for having me. Thank you so
Yeah.
much.
And thank
it,
you
guys.
everybody for listening to another episode of Strange Flavors. It's been another week.
Another flavor.
A little less stranger.
We'll talk to you next time.
70 ਸਿੱਖਾਂ ਤੇ ਫੌਜ ਸੀਗੀ ਲੱਖ ਫੇਰ ਵੀ ਫੌਜੀਆਂ ਦਾ ਛੱਡਿਆ ਨਹੀਂ ਕੱਖ ਪਰ ਲੋਸੀ ਆਈ ਮੌਤ ਰਹੀ ਸੀਗੀ ਨੱਚ ਇਹਨਾਂ